What is up, you amazing people? It is Nima here, and today I got a great game to talk about. Now, it can be difficult to follow with so many different games coming out right now. As of recording this, the new Doom just dropped. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 has basically been just owning the video game landscape. And so there's so many games that I think maybe fall in between the cracks, and they almost become hidden gems just because, well, our attentions were somewhere else. And I gotta be honest, I think I did find one here. And this game for me is a callback to like that mid-early 2000s kind of action adventure games, over the top comedy, not really heavy on the story, but just a lot of fun to play. And that game is called Sir Whoopass. Yes. And right now the game, by the way, is only $17 on PlayStation and Xbox. I think they're also going to expand it in the near future from what I was reading, and hopefully they do. But before we really get into this, please hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow and allows me to cover more games and gives me more opportunities. But let's get back into what is important here, Sir Whoopass. Now, first off, I have to start with the story because I think it is the least important, yet when I talk about story, I often talk about dialogue as well. And so it's kind of funny because with this, the story is like a 3 or 4 out of 10. They really didn't put much into it, and they admit it early on. They say as much. Hey, this is a standard, typical action adventure game where you play as the hero and you're trying to take down an evil wizard who is going to ruin the world, essentially. But on the other side of that, the dialogue and the writing is amazing. It's like an 8 out of 10. It is so creative and hilarious. Yeah, sometimes they try too hard, but honestly, there was many times in this game where I was just cracking up. I absolutely love a game with a lot of humor, and this game brings it. And I really just love that aspect of it, especially with some of the meta kind of stuff where it would call itself out. Like, hey, you would think the game developers wouldn't do this to you or wouldn't allow you to get to this point unless they had set it up properly. But I guess they didn't because they're lazy. You know, that kind of thing. As well as like the characters themselves. Some of the events that happen in the game are stuff that happens in regular RPGs, but no one ever says anything. An example of this would be like, hey, I just met you and you're telling me I'm gonna have to travel into another dimension that I didn't even know it existed. But hey, I trust you, you know, that kind of thing. There's so much of that in the game, not to mention some of the resources, some of the ways that you have to like heal, create potions. If you love cats, you may not enjoy that, or if you love gnomes, you may not enjoy the way that you have to heal. But again, super over the top stuff and just really funny. And I enjoyed that about the game. I would argue the other major aspect of the game is gameplay. Combat, how does all that feel? Now, I will say this, your actual moving is okay. It does feel a little bit sloppy at times. It feels like your character's kind of on skates, and honestly, the worst parts of this game are the platforming, and there is quite a bit of platforming, honestly, like more than you would think out of like a 3D open world RPG type game. And the penalty for missing these platforms is incredibly punishing. It's basically instant death in most scenarios, but to kind of make up for that, you are almost instantaneously brought back to really close to where that happened, so it doesn't really grate on you too much. I will say there's a few times that where I did get a bit frustrated by it, especially because it is an open world RPG and you're not expecting to do a lot of platforming, but then also the fact that the platforming is rather difficult and the controls and the character movement are sloppy. All of that kind of added into a little bit of frustration, but most of that can be overlooked, and I even found out that with most scenarios where you have to platform to get to an area to continue on with the stage, you can actually find a way around it and you don't have to deal with the platforming as much, but it does come up. Like I said, it's probably my biggest frustration with the entire game. That and maybe performance, and that's something we'll get to here in a second. I have to talk about combat for a little while because that, I think, is where this game also really shines because it is so much fun. It's just a hack and slash. It's a very simple hack and slash. You have some basic moves like you can dodge, block, and your block is super overpowered. Like when an enemy runs up to you and tries to hit you, and you can already have the block held down, that they will hit you and they'll just like fall over, giving you a perfect opportunity to counter. Where in most games, you have to time that just right to be able to get that stun, you know? No, not this one. But I will say that this game isn't just a hack and slash. You know, you don't have to worry about defending, just, you know, keep going, you know, Dynasty Warrior style. No, it's actually kind of difficult in the fact that you do gotta play defense. You really do. And if you don't, you'll get overwhelmed quite easily when facing mobs. If you're just fighting like 2 or 3 guys, no worries. But there is many times in the game where you're fighting like up to 10, 12 enemies at a time, sometimes even more. And what'll happen is they'll hit you, knock you off balance, or interrupt your next attack. So if you're not blocking, you're not playing defense at all, then it's very easy to get overwhelmed in those scenarios. Well, luckily the game gives you a ton of health, a ton of options. It's not a difficult game. Don't worry, this is not a Souls-like game or anything of that nature. It's just a little bit more intuitive than a Dynasty Warriors, killing tons of mobs, not even worrying about blocking, that kind of thing. That's all I'm saying. And for my part, I honestly have to say that my experience with the combat is just a lot of fun. I really didn't have to worry too much about being overwhelmed or anything of that nature, so don't worry on that end. The fun does not really stop with that. Like I said, the only thing that really took away from the game for me was the platforming. Now, there are other issues with the game, but platforming was the one thing that really just put the brakes on the game. Now, another thing that I really do like about it is the multiple weapons. There are tons of weapons. Unfortunately, you have to deal with the jump scare that is the blacksmith. And yes, he will trip you out. He is a freaky looking guy. There is also hats you can find, many different hats that have a surprising array of different buffs that you can lend to your character. Most of them don't make a huge impact, but some of them are incredibly important. You do, though, kind of look ridiculous as a guy in a full set of armor who looks like a badass, and then you're wearing like a bunny hat. Something like that on top of it. But again, this adds to the humor of the game, and it never really takes itself too serious. Now, I have alluded to the fact that another issue with the game is performance, and yeah, no, the performance is not great. There are certain moments, especially when you're running around in the open world, or even in really busy villages, where the game will kind of lag up for just a quick couple seconds. It's not a huge issue, and I think it's something they can easily fix with a patch. It doesn't take away from the game, it's just something that's noteworthy, and there are times when you might be defeating a bunch of enemies, and you send one flying, and then you notice after the battle that he's still just stuck there in the air. In my experience, you can always just walk through the enemy. They don't impede the game or stop anything. It's just, I don't know, a little bit of the retro charm of Xbox 360 games, if you ask me, like that era. And I think that's what this game totally encapsulates for me, is that, like I said, that mid 2000s, early 2000s, 360 era, where we got some really funny, great action adventure games that I think are perfect in that AA realm. Is this game gonna make people scream it's game of the year? No, of course not. Are people going to rejoice over, wow, how creative and innovative this game is? No, they're not. But if you're looking for a really fun experience under $20, yeah, this is a great game to play. It's not too long. It run anywhere between 12 to 15 hours. It's definitely not very expensive. As I just said, it's under $20. I got it for, I think, $17. And it just does what you want a game like this to do. And so I really enjoyed it for that aspect. And when comparing it to a game in this sort of style, I would definitely say it scores a high score. I would give it an 8 out of 10, even though that might be a little generous because of some of the issues I've talked about, but knowing what they were trying to capture and seeing their process of doing that is the reason why I would give it an 8 out of 10. Now, you could argue, hey, it doesn't do great with sound, it doesn't do great with performance, there's a problem with this and that, and the story's lackluster, and whatever. You could say all of that, and you'd be right. You would. But I would argue that none of that really gets in the way of what the game is trying to bring you. And I do expect there to be a patch or two. Maybe not. It doesn't really need one, if I'm being honest. Like, some of this stuff, it just reminds me of playing like those old 360 games, and I'm fine with that, honestly, especially for the price. But I don't know. Let me know what your thoughts are on the game. If this is something you're interested in, have you heard about it? Is it something that you're gonna check out now, or you're just gonna pass? Not really your style. Anything and everything in the comment section is much appreciated. I love each and every one of you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.